After lying in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol building, George H.W. Bush made his final journey past the White House he once occupied to a state funeral service at Washington's National Cathedral. Friends and dignitaries from Bush's decades of public service stood as his flag-draped casket entered the cathedral. At times such as this, U.S. presidents typically set aside their political differences. But as President Donald Trump took a front row seat, he shook hands with only some of the former First families. Former First Lady Hillary Clinton, his Democratic opponent in the 2016 election, did not even look his way. Bush Sr.'s longtime friend, former Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, acknowledged the 41st president's time in office as an era which saw the end of the Soviet Union, the first Gulf War, and the introduction of the North American Free Trade Agreement.
No occupant of the Oval Office was more courageous, more principled, and more honorable than George Herbert Walker Bush.
But it was the eulogy of Bush's son, George W. Bush, the 43rd President of the United States, that delivered the most personal of tributes, praising his father's character and public service.
He was an empathetic man. He valued character over pedigree.
Bush closed his speech not as a former president, but as a son overcome with grief.
The best father a son or daughter could have.
Bush dried his eyes as the final hymn was sung and his father's casket was led in procession out of the cathedral. President George Herbert Walker Bush will be laid to rest alongside his wife Barbara, who died in April. He will be buried at his presidential library in Texas. It is a distinguished end for a man who dedicated his life to public service. Kimberly, Halkett, Al Jazeera, Washington.